I'm glad to report that hype is not the mind killer. This is the Total Movie Recall channel. I'm Ellis, that's Paul Tams, and we've just seen Dune Part 2. And I dare say, it's a bloody masterpiece. How's it going, Paul?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm Dune Part 2, man. I'm riding the high. Went to watch it Friday morning, 9 a.m. I've been riding the high all weekend. I've been reading everyone's thoughts on it. Pre-ordered the 4K Steelbook. I've been listening to the score every day since.
All day.
Oh my God, the score's amazing. I was waiting to see the film before I wanted to listen to it in its entirety. And it's such an incredible score. But yeah, riding the high, man. What a motion picture this was.
Yeah, totally. Like, one of my most anticipated films of the year, definitely, if not my most anticipated. I had a lot of expectations for this film. It met them all and exceeded them even further, I found. Just to give you a little bit of where we're going with this review, we'll do some non-spoilers first, guys, just to give you just a lowdown of our overall thoughts, what we thought, maybe what we liked, if there was anything we disliked, I don't know. But then we'll get on to spoilers and we'll get into it a little bit. We'll get into characters a bit more in depth into the scene by scene basis. But yeah, man, just to give you a little context of where I'm coming from, when the first movie was coming out, I had already seen the Lynch movie prior to the first film. Didn't get it. Looked lovely. Liked all the visual aesthetics of the Lynch film, but like, it wasn't coherent enough for me to follow on. I was just a bit lost with the names, houses, places, planets, etc. But then we fast forward to Denis Villeneuve, I would say number 2 working director. Today, I would put Chris Nolan at the top spot, then Denis Villeneuve in the second. But I was very excited to hear that he was attached to Dune, because obviously he's turned into a bit of a science fiction extraordinaire with the likes of Arrival and Blade Runner 2049. So I was like really hyped for this film. I ended up listening to the audiobook of Dune and Messiah, and I ended up watching the Children of Dune sci-fi series. That has its limitations because of the budget, and when it came out nearly like 20 years ago, I think, at this point, early 2000s that came out. But James McAvoy is really good in it. But yeah, man, so I was mega hyped. Ended up listening to the 2 books, sat down to watch Dune Part 1, and I was totally blown away. Now, I gave that film 4 stars. I thought it's an amazing, if you've got 3 sections of a film, the first section and second section are really well done. But it's sort of that third section of that first movie, Part 1, is missing a little bit. Didn't really bother me that much, because I knew in the future we will be getting Part 2. So I was like, right, it's just a waiting game. But I can't give this like 5 stars or anything just because of that ending. Performances, music, all that was great about it. But then we get to Dune Part 2, and I've got to say, this film blew me away, big style. You know, like, I'm old enough at this point to say that I've seen Two Towers in the cinema. I've seen The Dark Knight in the cinema. And you know, when you come out of certain movies, there's a feeling that you get, an overall feeling that you get, that you've seen something really special. And that's exactly the feelings that I had leaving the cinema last night. I saw it with a packed house. Everyone was dead set focused on the film throughout it, and at the end, when the credits opened up, there was a silence, but it was a good silence. It was like you could really feel that the whole cinema had seen something really special. This film is extraordinary, guys. I think Denis Villeneuve has been working up his entire career, a lot like Christopher Nolan did with Oppenheimer. It was said that he'd been working his entire career to make that film. I feel the same with Denis Villeneuve. Like, he's put all the tricks in place to make this something special. And what I will say is, if you had a few problems with the first movie as regards to pacing. Maybe like my partner, my girlfriend, isn't a big Dune head, but like she felt the runtime of that first one. However, total different story with this one. I think Denis Villeneuve and his editor, or I don't know who the editor's his name is, but they've done a really well done job here, because I think the film is paced immaculately. I wasn't bored once throughout the film. But yeah, overall thoughts, we'll get into it a little bit deeper as we go on, but this is a 5-star film for me. This is like, I haven't stopped thinking about it since the minute I left the cinema. I think it's truly special, and I can't wait to watch it again. But Paul, your overall thoughts of Dune Part 2?
Yeah, I'll do something similar to what you did. I'll sort of set the stage for this review about where I am with Dune as a sort of story, as a franchise as a whole. My introduction to Dune in general as a story was the first part, Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 1. I went in off the basis of knowing it was a novel, knowing it was a science fiction novel, in the sort of high-end science fiction. And just coming off Blade Runner 2049 and Arrival, Sicario, I knew this was a director who's, his catalogue's stacked, and he always puts out banger movies, in my opinion. So I went into Dune Part 1 fresh. It was my introduction to the film, to the story. And I walked out, admittedly, the same way I walked out of Fellowship of the Ring the very first time I watched that. I've said this a couple of times about Dune Part 1. I walked out knowing I'd seen an incredible movie, but I knew in my head I hadn't quite got it down, the lore, the story. The exact same when I walked out Lord of the Rings, I knew I'd seen something new, special, because when I went into Fellowship of the Ring, I felt I went into that fresh. I didn't even know it was based on a book. I didn't know there was going to be 3 movies. I went in fresh to that movie, and I walked out knew and I enjoyed it, knew and I could possibly love it, but I needed to watch it a couple more times, and that was what I did with Dune Part 1. I watched it at the cinema, enjoyed it, needed to see it again. I've watched it like 2 or 3 times since it's released. And every time I picked something else up in the movie, something I'd remember a name or a setting or a terminology. And the movie, just the more I watched it, the more I was absorbing it, the more I was becoming a fan of the story in that movie. To a point where I watched it for the 4th time, I think, last week leading up to Part 2. And I was just giddy and gritting at the teeth to get Part 2 watched. I also read the novel for the very first time last week, part reading, part audio, just to sort of get more absorbed, just get more into the Dune world and really get my hype ready for Part 2, to a point where when I walked into Part 2, I'd sort of spoiled the movie for myself by reading the book, but it didn't take anything away from it whatsoever. If anything, it helped me understand the movie easier. Like, on the first watch, I knew exactly what was going on, who was who, what was going to happen, and it heightened the movie for me, knowing I'd just read the novel and it being fresh in my head. I walked out the cinema, went to watch it on IMAX, 9 a.m., walked out the cinema, absolutely gobsmacked by what I'd seen. I knew this was going to be a special movie. The hype from the last couple of weeks have been nothing but positive from people who've seen it early. And I was thinking, is it going to be a bit hype ball? People are saying like masterpiece, one of the best films ever made, one of the best sequels ever made. I agree with every review, everyone. I walked out, I was like, that's one of the best films I've ever seen in my life. And I've seen a hell of a lot of movies, and it was one of the best sequels I've ever seen in my life. Them 2 movies now, Part 1, Part 2, if I think of it as one big 6-hour movie, 5.5 hour, 6-hour movie, one of the best movies of all time, in my opinion. And that's not just saying it because it's fresh and it's new. I knew walking out of that movie that I'm going to be a Dune fan for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there 100%. Like, coming out the cinema, it was just like in a wave of emotions that I'm still having now, to be honest. Like, it hasn't left my brain. But yeah, I've got to agree with you there a little bit. I was a little bit, like, we're in an era today of when a film like this comes out, or a big template film, that, sometimes the reviews go like a little bit extra. Do you know what I mean? So when you're seeing like masterpiece and stuff like that banded about this week, yeah, like I was second guessing it. I can't lie. Like, and there's like this horrible little devil inside of me that wants to be like be the contrary to what the norm is. But I come out of that and there's like, I can't find any faults with that whatsoever. Everyone's like on the money with it. Like when I mention Two Towers and when I mention The Dark Knight, I'm not necessarily saying the film is as good as them. I'm not trying to compare it. I'm just saying like I had a similar feeling coming out of it, you know. But like as far as craftsmanship goes here, everyone's just firing on like 100% cylinders.
Oh, start to finish, everyone firing on all cylinders.
100%. And you know, like if we're just talking about the cast a little bit, like I'm not gonna lie, Paul, like I have not been sold on Timothy Chalamet, like as an actor. He's just like I don't really get it. I get the heartthrob Timothy Chalamet, but the actor Timothy Chalamet, I'm not sure. Like I've not 100% sold yet. That totally changed in this film. Not to spoil anything, but there's a certain point in the film where something happens and there's a turn for him. And, you know, to compare it to another IP right now, this early on in the review, I'm not going to do. But there's such a, and it's done properly and well, and it's just like this is how that was supposed to be with that certain character in that other franchise. But we'll get there later. But yeah, man, like as well, Zendaya. Like I'm not gonna lie, also not a massive fan of Zendaya. I haven't loved her performances as MJ in the Spider-Man films, and like I haven't really seen her in anything else. I haven't seen Euphoria, which everyone bangs on about that she's really good. Like I've got no, like, you know, I know she's got it in there somewhere, but yet again with this film, totally changed my opinion of her. And for anyone saying, you know, like she had hardly any screen time in that first one, it was mainly right at the start with a voiceover and right at the end when she meets Paul and Jessica. But she has been given a big role in this. And once we get into the spoiler section, I'll dive a little bit more into Chaney's character, because they've expanded that role definitely from what it was in the book. But yeah, what did you think of our two basically leads, Zendaya and Timothy Chalamet? They absolutely nailed it for me here, Paul.
Smashed it, mate. Absolutely smashed it. Yeah, listen, the whole cast, this is an incredible ensemble cast. The whole cast, man. You know, we only got Oppenheimer last year, and that cast is amazing across the board. We got the same here, man. Everyone firing on all cylinders. Not one person did I feel out of place. Did I feel that was a bad casting choice? Everyone firing on all cylinders. Timothy Chalamet, man. Yeah. Admittedly, I've not seen every film he's done. I've seen Dune Part 1, of course. Recently, I've seen Wonka, which I wasn't a fan of that movie, but he was good in it. Yeah. You know, he's got range, man. For when you look at what he did in Wonka to this, it's completely opposite. So he's got range, man. They were great. They both held the film together for me. Zendaya, obviously she didn't get, like you said, she didn't get much to do in Part 1, which in the book she doesn't. She doesn't really come into it till halfway through the book. So I knew she was going to get a lot more in this movie. Yeah. You know, it's part love story, and I believed it. I believed their chemistry, you know, and their relationship in the movie. Listen, man, there's nothing. I cannot fault this movie. I've got nothing. I've tried thinking of stuff. I've seen people online saying it's too long or the pacing's off. Disagree. 100%. The 2 hours 46 minutes, mate, flew by for me. I was locked in from start to finish.
My litmus test for that was my partner, my girlfriend. So, like, if I was going to come out of that and she was going to be like, "Oh, it was a bit long, though," she's got no qualms with saying that as a grievance when we come out of films. That was too long. That wasn't the case here. It just, you know, and like I've seen it, like a couple of people come out with a complaint, as in like it takes place in like one certain place, then swaps over to another place for a long period of time. It jumps back and forth a little bit. I never found that I was just stuck in one place for one period of time too long. But that's just me anyway. But
even if when we were, obviously because there are long scenes in this movie, even when we are stuck in sort of one place for a length of time, the cinematography and the way the movie looks is so beautiful that you're immersed in it. Like it's,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, in longer scenes of the movie, I was just like, look at this movie. Like, look, it's beautiful.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And when, like, I think the film opens up really well, not to get into the specifics of it, but like the opening scene in the desert, the way they've shot that, especially is it Greg Fraser, like absolutely nails it. But don't want to spoil that opening, not just yet. But sticking with the characters, Paul, we've got Javier Bardem playing Stigler, who is just like one of the best parts of the film. Brings a lot of the heart, brings a lot of the emotion, brings a lot of surprising amount of humor to the film with just how insanely religious this bloke is.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, this guy believes the prophecy, man. But Javier Bardem just absolutely killed it for me. Definitely, the humor and adding a bit more humor to this film was also another thing that added to like the pace of the film. There was a little bit of levity, so it just kept it moving on a little bit. But Javier Bardem smashed it for me as Stigler. What did you think of our old Javier Bardem?
Yeah, man. I don't mean to correct you. It's Stilgar.
Stilgar.
No, you're good.
Yeah, that won't be the first time I get a name wrong tonight, my friend.
I've read the book.
Yeah,
he was great. Everyone who was teased in part one, Javier Bardem, Zendaya, even Dave Bautista, got a bit more to do in this movie, and to really shine and bring the characters that were sort of teased in part one to life in part two. He was great. He was like you said, his humor was great in this movie. It wasn't like forced humor. It was like that's what somebody like him would do. He's a believer of this prophecy that the movie talks about, and anything that Paul does in the movie, Timothée Chalamet, he's like he would do that because he is that person. Like it was great. He was awesome in it. Again, stacked cast. He's awesome in everything he does, and no exception here. He was a great addition to the second part of the story.
Yeah, man, definitely. Solid performance here. And then we get on to Lady Jessica, played by Rebecca Ferguson, who, not to get into spoilers again, but she also has a sort of goes through a change in this film. And, there's like a sort of night and day like performance thing going on here where something switches on and she turns, not to spoil anything, but she's really good. We'll get more into her when we get into the spoilers section. But just to briefly touch on the Harkonnens as well, Paul. They were all outstanding here, in my opinion. Stellan Skarsgård kept nailing it for me from part one to part two. Liked all his scenes. Not in it as much as I thought he may have been in it, but that's fine. Just that is like the smallest of nitpicks. But then we've got Dave Bautista as the Beast, I think it is. Rabban. Also pretty great. Gets a little bit more to do here, not that much, but I think the star of the show when it comes to the Harkonnens is got to be Fade Raufa, played by Austin Butler. Yeah, man, this is like a newcomer sort of type situation, like that everybody's got their eyes on at the minute. He was really solid in Elvis, and he just absolutely blew me away here. Like one of the most rememberable characters of the entire film, definitely. And his introduction's just absolutely next level. Austin Butler really impressed me here. Being on the fence with him a little bit as well. It's just like maybe the fence isn't the right term to use. I just haven't seen him in an awful lot of things. So this was great. I thought he fit this character really well. Like you've got Sting from the Lynch version with that big metal nappy on. He played it great, but like Austin Butler definitely adds a little bit more depth for this character who is psychotic and, like he's hell in the book. Like he's a bad son of a bitch, man. But I thought that came across really well here. Yeah, man. What did you think of the Harkonnen clan? in this part 2 film.
Yeah, man. Like I said, keep going. I'll keep saying it. They just carried on from part 1. Dave Bautista got a bit more to do in this. He's not a massive character in the book anyway, so he's not in it as much as you'd think. But when he's on screen, he's bringing it. Stellan Skarsgård, great back there as Baron. I think they sidelined him a little bit just to focus more on Fayed Ralph, Austin Butler's character.
Yeah,
rightly so, because he's like the antagonist of the movie. He was awesome. Better than the book in my eyes. He brought.
All right, really?
I preferred him in the movie to the book. He's ruthless in this. He's I've seen a lot of people already saying comparing him to like Heath Ledger's Joker. I'm not there with that, but I get where they're coming from. Where every time he's on screen, you're locked in. You're not taking your eyes off the screen. You're watching everything this guy does. Creepy. His creepy design. The way he spoke was creepy, and the end bit with him was awesome.
Awesome.
But that's all I'll say.
Yeah. His voice was excellent here. Like I've noticed other people like say this, but like he sort of imitates Skarsgård, the Baron's the voice, like his language and stuff like that, the way he speaks and the cadence in his voice, really, really impressive. But then we've got 2 newcomers in Christopher Walken and Florence Pugh. Princess Irulan, played by Florence Pugh, not loads of screen time. She hasn't got that much screen time, not that much to do in the book. It's more like Messiah that she has more to do than like Children of Dune onwards. But like she nails it for the most part. I really like the sort of the opening, like not to spoil things, but she gives a little sort of recap right at the start of the film. Very, very basic recap. But that's a really good choice. I think she matches up well with Timothy and stuff like that. My only weak point in this entire film, my only maybe one negative, apart from maybe there's a couple of changes in the book, is Christopher Walken. So as the Emperor, to me, it just didn't hit the way I thought it was going to. Like, I think if they'd done something with Christopher Walken where he just wasn't just Christopher Walken, that would have made a bit more sense to me. But he's not got loads of screen time. But I don't know. I found it pretty funny, especially when he was like, tell me more about this Muad'Dib. Do you know what I mean? It's just like I
was trying not to hear the Christopher Walken. Do you know what I mean? I was trying my best not to hear it, but it was coming out in parts.
I love Christopher Walken. Yeah. I love him, but I just thought this particular role, you could have made it a little bit more menacing, a little bit more, I don't know, like I could have a beer with Christopher Walken as the Emperor in this film. Do you know what I mean? Like, even though he's been made to do a load of bad shit, but I don't know, it just didn't come across that it was overly menacing.
I'll probably say, Alex, this is just my interpretation of the character in general. Obviously, just reading the book, I think a lot of people will compare him. I'm not saying this is what you're doing, but I feel like because he's called the Emperor, a lot of people are going to compare him to Star Wars and think he's going to be that sort of manipulator and all that. In the book, he isn't really that. He's just an emperor of the galaxy, and he's trying to steer things in the way he wants it to go. Again, he's not a big character in the book. I think he's only in it for like maybe 3 or 4 chapters that we get something with him in.
I'll put it differently then. I'd have wished we'd have seen more of his like sort of establishment and where he's from, and he's like ground based. Not to say that he's sinister or anything like that. I just wanted to see more of his home planet, of like how rich and how like he is the Emperor of the galaxy. I'm not on about, I don't want him to be Darth Sidious. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's not what I'm saying, but just like, I don't know. I just like, it was really like, the ship that comes in at the end that he travels in, that was awesome. I wish we'd have seen a bit more of that on his like home planet and stuff, but that's a really minor nitpick.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. There was parts of me, I was like, if you're getting Christopher Walken in this role, then I would have thought you would have given a bit more to do. But you know, I feel like everyone, rather than Denis being like, I want this guy because it's Christopher Walken, I can imagine them being like, I want to be in this movie because it's Dune and it's Denis Villeneuve. And you know, I think Florence Pugh's even come out saying Denis Villeneuve spoke to her. He said, listen, this is a small role, but I would like you. And she's like, I don't care how big it is. I want to be in this movie.
Yeah, that's fair, man. That's fair. But yeah, that's sort of my thoughts on the characters quickly. Hans Zimmer, just to move on the score really quickly, just absolutely Hans Zimmer in the shit out of this film. Like, honestly, I really, really love that part one score. Like, I really love it. Like, most of the tracks on it, I love. This one, like you say, it's been on Spotify all week, and I'm just being like, no, I'm not listening to it. I'm not listening to it. Wait till the film. Yeah, mate, this has just got some epic tracks in it, man. The worm riding track specifically is awesome. And I like the whole sort of, you get like a, you know, like in Star Wars, like Han Solo, like they've got their own sort of love thing.
I know
yeah, Channy and Paul sort of get that, and I love it. And I had two major goosebumps in the film, and it's basically in the trailer, but it's just them two sat on a dune, and like the music kicks in, mate, goosebumps for days. It was whoa. But yeah, guys, just for non-spoilers, I think that'll do us. I highly recommend this film. 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5. It's a brilliant adaptation of the book with some changes that I think are going to be beneficial for the films going forward. But yeah, man, just final non-spoiler thoughts, Paul.
Yeah, man, I don't think I'm going to see a better film this year. I'm just going to say that now. I can't. We've gone through movies coming out this year. I don't think I'm going to walk out of another movie this year and be as hyped as I am on Dune Part 2. Like I said at the top of this video, mate, now Part 1 and Part 2 together, this could be just because it's early days, but I honestly feel like it's now probably one of my all-time favorite films. I absolutely adored it. I adore this story. Everything about it, fire on all cylinders. Not, you know, this is a 5 out of 5 movie for me, 10 out of 10, A+. Not saying it's perfect. No movie ever is perfect, but in terms of what I wanted out the film and what it gave me, I walked out and I could have lit up a cigar. I was that happy. I was incredible filmmaking.
Guys, go see this film. It's an epic work of art, in my opinion. One of the best films in recent memory. But all right, mate, let's just get into spoilers a little bit here. Some specific things that I want to get into. So first off, I just want to jump into this opening scene that we get into set in the desert in Arrakis. But it reminded me of, you know, when Officer K in Blade Runner 2049, I think he goes to, is it Los Angeles near the end of the film, and it's all painted in orange, the skies. It reminded me of that, like the cinematography in that. My thing's a bit like, you know, like sand, beige, that sort of color palette. I was like, if they open up the film like they ended the last film, I don't know whether that would be the right choice. However, they don't do that. They open it up when it's like nighttime or the sun's just coming up or whatever, so it gives it this orange glow. And you have the Harkonnens come down, and you've got Paul and Lady Jessica trying to escape from the Harkonnens. That whole sequence. And what really like made me sit up in my chair is when they started floating up the mountain and just how seamless it looked. Like even like my partner looked at me and we went, "Whoa, that was pretty sick." Just because it was just a seamless transition of like CGI and practical. Like you couldn't tell, and it looked amazing. But this whole intro I found was gorgeous to look at. What did you think of this intro?
I love the intro. For some reason, I was expecting it to be like quite an epic intro. I don't know why I had that in my head, because that's not happens in the book. Yeah. It just carries on of them going to the Seek Tur, whatever the hell they call it, their base. It reminded me of a sort of Bond opening, like a cold Bond opening, where you don't know quite what's going on and where they're going and what's going on. And the Harkonnens come down, they've got sniper rifles and they were getting picked off. And from there, man, I was in. Like, I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. Like, straight away, you've locked me in within the first 5 minutes of a movie, man. It's crazy. Yeah, I loved it. Loved the opening. Sort of getting us back acquainted with our characters straight there. Sort of showing us what's gone on right from where we left off with part one and them still on the run. Yeah, great opening to the movie, man. It locked me in straight away.
Yeah, and you've still got you can see, like, because they've still got Jamis there, who was killed in the last film, who's in the body bag, taking them back to their base sort of thing. But yeah, I was mentioning earlier on about Lady Jessica and Rebecca Ferguson. I didn't really want to get that far into her character because she goes through a big change right sort of early on in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is what I mean about this movie, guys. Like, the pace of it's spot on. Like, there's not many slow bits, and there's little bits of action just peppered through the entire thing. But, like, moving on, Lady Jessica, she goes and takes the water of life, basically, which is going to turn her into the Reverend Mother of the Fremen. And this is a big change in the demeanor of Lady Jessica. I think she's been quite, motherly up until that point. There's still that thing in the back of your head that, the Bene Gesserit are planning plans within plans, as they say in this film. So when she becomes the Reverend Mother, she gains all the memories and access memories of all the Reverend Mothers, and now has got all this information in her head. Now, when she turns into Reverend Mother, of course, when she's going through the ceremony, they don't know she's pregnant yet. Now, this is a change from the book to the film adaptation. In the book, if I'm not mistaken, she actually does end up having the baby. She doesn't have this baby at all in this film. But at the end of the film, she's still pregnant. But I found it really interesting the way that when she did have the water of life, obviously the fetus, and it actually shows you the fetus as well, of like the baby inside, getting the blue water. And then from then on out, Jessica and the fetus are just having like a good old natter, good old conversation throughout the entire rest of the film. Really loved that. Really loved the way they depicted that whole thing as well. Thought it visually looked really striking. But, Lady Jessica throughout this film has, like, she's turning, in my eyes, more villainous than what she was sort of in the book. Now, the Bene Gesserits aren't necessarily villains, but they are schemers, and they do plan. This whole prophecy that the Fremen believe in is essentially a fake prophecy that was planted there years ago by the Bene Gesserit. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, to see her transition throughout the film and get a little bit more, when she goes and spreads the word of Muad'Dib, like, she goes and finds the weakest first to spread the word to and stuff like that. And just by the end of the film, she's had she ain't the same person who she is at the start of the film. But I'm glad they got the water of life in there pretty early on. There was sort of no fucking about there. Just straight in with it. Yeah.
I'll tell you what as well. That scene in the book goes on for so long. When she takes the water of life, the way Frank Herbert's describing what's happening to her goes on for pages and pages and pages, to a point where I was listening to it like, what is he talking about? Denis Villeneuve took this scene, hit the points that Frank Herbert did, and knew that the audience needed to see, and give it in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, and he's done that with a couple of things in this film as well. Like, he's not decided to include a few characters, few, like, not pivotal scenes, but there's a lot missing here. This is the absolute bare bones of the story, and that isn't a negative by any imagination, but this is a basic version of this story. Like, don't take that as a negative.
No, not at all.
Like,
the film does everything. If you want to absorb the story of Dune, Denis Villeneuve's Dune gives you every story point you need to know to get from the start to the finish.
Yeah,
shaving off the bits that you can fill out in a novel, because it's a different medium of storytelling. But the thing with her daughter Aaliyah not being born in the there was a point for some reason I thought the film was going to do one of them 2 years later. because
I was expecting it.
Yeah, because in the book does it quite subtly. It sort of goes into a next chapter, and it's like 2 years have passed, and unless you've clocked onto that, you don't know for a while that 2 years have gone by. I was expecting it to happen in the film, and it doesn't. Which for me, and I think I wrote this on a couple of movie pages the last couple of days. I think it streamlines the movie a lot better. Whereas if it was just go boom 2 years later and here's what's happened, I think it would have made the pacing a little bit off for me. But I liked what he did. Again, she wasn't born, but we still got every bit of information from the book in this version just by doing that.
I do feel like we could run into not problems, but I was confused myself, like because there wasn't that 2 year sort of jump. Like Aaliyah wasn't born yet and stuff like that. Like because in the book, it ain't Paul that kills the Baron. It's Aaliyah. Yeah. It's his sister. Right. You know what I mean? So it was a bit confusing to me. And I think there's, big implications here that Anya Taylor-Joy is going to be Aaliyah in the next film.
Oh, 100%.
100%. Yeah. Even when it gets, I like to the point where you haven't seen Anya Taylor-Joy, then when you see her in the dream sequence, then when Lady Jessica is speaking to the fetus then speaks back in Anya Taylor-Joy's voice.
What's weird is I read through Messiah last week, and I'm currently reading through Children of Dune, and when Aaliyah's scenes are on the page, I'm picturing Anya Taylor-Joy as the character.
Totally. I think it's, to know where that character goes in the future, really spot on casting as well. 100%. But so like after that water life scene, we then follow Jessica and Paul getting more integrated with the Fremen and stuff like that. And there's an awesome scene where they take down, I think, a spice harvester.
Yeah. Oh my God, yes.
It's so epic. And so they're taking down the spice harvester. You've got Chani there who's got like a bazooka thing, and she's like shooting at the thing. Then they come up with a little plan. And I don't know if you noticed this, right? And I don't know whether I'm looking far too much into it. But he basically goes to run behind one of the arms of the spice harvester things, and the arm ends up coming up to blow his cover, basically. Did you notice him go, oh, shit?
Yeah.
Did you notice that? Yeah. Yeah. So did that throw you off or anything like that? That, like, we're 10,000 years in the future. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
What my thing to that is, right?
It's like seeing Lord of the Rings, and I'm seeing a ring wraith and Aragorn going, oh fuck.
Yeah. But my theory, and I don't know whether this is actually like being probably mentioned in the books or whatever, but like, like we are 10,000 years in the future from our time, I'm guessing. So is that like, is shit still about 10,000 years in the future, and he's using a quote unquote ancient word? Do you know what I'm saying?
I'd probably take it personally myself if it was just a little line delivery to give you that little bit of blockbuster flavor in the scene. Do you know what I mean?
Couldn't see
it was weird. It was weird.
Yeah, totally. But I think
I will have to say about this scene as well, man. Just visually, one of my favorite visuals of this whole entire movie is the way the Fremen come out that ground, man. And the way they just jump up. It's so cool.
And they've got the little, I had no idea what it was at first, but they've got the little
yeah,
it's badass, mate. So sick. But soon after that, the spice harvester scene, we get that like epic like love moment between Chani and Paul where they're speaking to each other sort of thing. Then like the music's blasting. It's so great. Big goosebumps.
That piece of music, I think it's track 1 on the score, and it's called Beginnings Are Such Delicate Times.
Yeah.
That piece of music, man, is beautiful.
Yeah, it is. Like, it works well in the scene.
It reminds me of the Heart of the Ocean theme from Titanic and bits from Fellowship of the Ring and stuff like that. Just, with the choir. Beautiful piece of music, man. Just
listening to the score today, mate, it's absolutely like next level. It's one of Hans' best scores he's ever done. But like listening to it, it does bring back like Howard Shore, like Lord of the Rings vibes. Like it's amazing. Dead right on that one. But then the next scene in the film, and arguably my favorite scene in the entire movie, is the worm riding scene of Paul calling Shia Halud over, and he calls the granddad Shia Halud over, which is the biggest worm that they have there. And mate, just this scene is just like, the goosebumps on my arm were like, honestly, I've never seen anything like it, man. I was eagerly anticipating this scene. I haven't seen any of the 10-minute preview that most people got to see of this scene and stuff like that, so it was just dead fresh for me. And it's just amazing, like the pure scale of it. You can feel it, like you can feel Paul literally on this side of this massive skyscraper worm, and just with the sound design, the score. Like, one of my favorite tracks from the first film is Leaving Caladan. And like, it's sort of the same track as that, but on steroids. Like, it's absolutely amazing. But yeah, love this whole worm riding scene. One thing that they never managed to get right in the Lynch version or anything like that, just because good effort because they use miniatures and stuff like that. I won't totally shit on it for 1984 or whatever. But like,
the Beetlejuice worms.
Yeah. They're not far off, are they? Definitely. But yeah, Paul, what did you think about this worm?
Yeah, man, like, listen, I was fortunate enough to see this film in IMAX, and my God, the screen, my seat was rumbling. I'm not over exaggerating. I'm not joking. You could feel the bass in my seat rumbling with this scene. Loved it, man. I tell you what, there's a bit in I don't want to go off on a tangent, but there's a bit in The Dark Knight Rises where all the cops are standing at the end of the final act. The cops are all waiting for something to happen, and then when it happens, they all start running and the music kicks in. You're like, oh, that's what I was like with this. Like, he gets on the worm, all the Fremen are like, and then he's up, he's riding it, and then the music hits and all the Fremen are just running down the sand dunes like, ah. And I was just like, yes.
Yeah. Then that is obviously like Stilgar, like, yep, this guy is the one. We found Neo, guys. Everyone chill out. We're good to go. But yeah, epic scene. And you just get a lot of like sort of like sequences of the Fremen fucking up the Harkonnens, man, and it's awesome. You've got Beast Raban doing a terrible job of he's been handed Arrakis by the Baron and the Emperor. Keep the spice must flow. It must flow. But he's not doing a very good job of it. Paul and his Fremen team are just taking it down, and it's just epic. I
love this. I love all the little skirmishes that are going on to like,
yeah.
You know, these little scenes of skirmishing at different things.
Yeah, there's a bit where it's like set at nighttime, and you just see Paul coming out of like the darkness, basically, and he's got the hood on.
Good.
It's just awesome, absolutely awesome. It reminded me of a way better version of it, but recently in the Obi-Wan series, there was a really good episode of where it shows you, I think, the Clone Wars, and there's an image of Darth Vader coming out of a similar sort of setting of that, and it reminded me of that. Yeah, not far off that character as well.
I think, you know, the first half of this movie is basically Paul and Lady Jessica getting in with the Fremen, and they're talking about the prophecy and who Paul is, and is he Muad'Dib? Not Muad'Dib. What did they call him? The
Al-Sire Gayan or something. That's the one I'm not even going to attempt, guys.
Yeah.
So don't.
The Messiah, and you know, they think he's the Messiah. He's here to take them into the Promised Land, and you have these group of characters that believe him, these group of characters that don't. You know, Cheney's friends don't believe him, and I liked these scenes because I don't feel they did that much in the book. I felt like in the book, most people. Most Fremen are just on board with him, whereas in
totally.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Whereas in the film we have, which sort of goes forward a bit because that starts happening in future novels where there's like pockets of the Fremen who don't believe him and become like activists and stuff.
Yeah.
But in the film, it was a good like little setup of that could possibly get in the future.
Well, let's just touch on that really quickly before we move on, get into Giddy Prime and stuff like that. You are 100% right, and it's one aspect that wasn't in the book that they do implement here, that there's different fractions of the Fremen that don't believe in Paul and don't believe the prophecy. Now, one of the major big changes of the book is Cheney is a devoted follower of Paul and the prophecy in the book. She believes it 100%. that is polar opposite in this film. And I think where they're going with, like, I've seen a lot of book purists have a major problem with this. They do not like the fact that Chaney isn't a devoted follower of Paul. But to me, that sets up an amazing conflict in the next film that we wouldn't have had in Messiah, because there's guys, I'm not like Messiah. There's not much action at all. The Messiah is where it gets real Game of Thrones shit.
Yeah, if you read that book, it's like watching 2 episodes of the first season of Game of Thrones. It's political, it's very narrative driven, very dialogue heavy.
A lot of scheming going on, a lot of planning again in Messiah, but on a bigger scale. So to me, having Chaney, like not believing this prophecy and not to like cut all the way to the end, but like specifically that end scene, I just thought, oh, here we go. This is not, to me, like Chaney's the Luke Skywalker now. She's going to go lead the rebellion against Darth Vader, who is obviously, I'm insinuating, is Paul Atreides. Like Paul Atreides falls off a cliff by the end of this film. He is on a path that he said throughout this entire film that he doesn't want to go down, but revenge gets the better of him. But yeah, just to move on, we get to Giddy Prime, Paul, and this scene, Jesus, right? So when we first seen the trailer and we saw Giddy Prime, which is the home of the Harkonnens, and it's all in black and white, I thought it looked sick in black and white, but there was a part of me that is like, I don't want this just to be black and white for the sake of being black and white. Do you know what I mean? I don't want someone to just flip a switch and be like, oh, we're on the Harkonnen, so it's black and white, so it looks cool. No, there's an actual reason it's in black and white, and the way they depict, so going from indoors with no sun to going out and this monochromatic sun turning like the robes from like black to white and stuff like that. It just looked so awesome. Thought that was a really, really clever touch. And I think Greg Fraser is just like the ultimate wizard for how that scene looks. And this is our first sort of mega introduction to Fade Rafa. Like we've gone through like almost an hour 15 in this film, and we haven't seen Fade. We get this baller introduction with Fade. I think there's a similar sort of introduction to Fade in the book as well. We have like this sort of gladiator scene, and he has a lot of Atreides that are drugged up, which you do see here. But then you see that the Barons gave him a gift by undrugging one of them. You see how hungry for the violence Fade is. And I specifically loved it where he's killing the last 3 of these Atreides.
I will quickly say as well, I read this before. The one he ends up fighting, sort of like the final one, is the stunt coordinator for the film.
Oh, right. Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that's mint. All right, sick. But yeah, so it gets to that guy at the last one. And that they have them weird, like, things like that just pop out of the darkness in that Colosseum sort of thing. They look very weird. I was all about it. Like, but one of them came over to try and like help Fade, and he just screams at him. I love that. Love that whole shot. You've seen it in the trailer. But that Giddy Prime scene like really, really blew me away. And I like that we stay there for a little bit as well. We don't just get the gladiator scene then do one. We have
I have to tell you who the standout in was for me. Apart from Austin Butler in this, was Leah Sadu, man. She was doing things to me in this film, man.
Yeah, 100%. And that whole section with her and Fade, I just thought, oh, this is reminding me of the book. Like, it does get sort of seedy in the book. And later on down the line is quite sort of sexual in a way. Like, there is a lot of like weird shit that goes on, guys. And like, I love that the fact I didn't realize that she was a Bene Gesserit at first. Then when like the whole, like, I thought she was just like getting him in to keep the bloodline going. But like when she gets the Gon Jabbar, I was like, oh, sick. So loved that entire sequence and the confirmation that, like she did sleep with him, and she's now got Fade's bloodline carried on, the Harkonnen bloodline carried on. But this whole Giddy Prime scene, mate, absolutely exceptional. And the fireworks, the giant ink blots in the sky, man. Wow, never seen that before.
Greg Fraser should be on posters as a selling point to movies.
He should.
Do you know what I'm saying? He should be like, from the cinematographer Greg Fraser, man, that'll pull me into any film he does.
Yeah. Yeah, he's phenomenal. Like with this, the Batman, the creator, the guy's just like performing on every single level. But yeah, man. So slowly after that, we get a few more sequences, and then we get to Paul drinking the water of life. Now, this is the big change. This is the switch. This is what we've been wanting not to happen, basically, because he's been a bit unsure up in this point and sort of, I think, confident that he wasn't going to fall down a certain path of destruction, basically. But, you know, he knows that this Messiah figure is sort of like built on a lie, but, you know, like I was saying earlier on, revenge gets the better of him and he heads south. It's been a big thing that he's not to head south to the Fremen because they are all religious. Like, they're bang on in the religion down there. You know what I mean?
It's such a ballsy move as well for a movie to do this. Because I spoiled myself with it because I knew, reading the books, I knew it was going to happen. But had I not, if I'd not spoiled myself, I would not have thought that is where the story was going to go at all.
No, I think after he drinks the water of life here, this is what made me, I was like, right, Timothy's got it here, because once that flip switches and he takes the water of life, he does become this leader, and I do believe it when he's like shouting at people using the voice.
Silence!
Yeah, like believed it. You know what I mean? He sort of got taller in a way. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, my God, like here he is. Like he's really going to do this sort of thing. And this is, you know, when Shani's like, oh shit, like this, we might have just created like a monster here. But yeah, the Emperor arrives on Arrakis, and it's our big epic battle, which as far as epic battles go, Paul, I think this one's pretty sick. I like the sort of mirror image that it has with Zendaya's character that it does with Paul in the first one. I thought that was pretty clever. But yeah, I thought this was pretty epic, mate. What did you think about the battle scene at the end?
Yeah, admittedly, I seen a few people say that this is one of the best battle scenes. The last 45 minutes is like this one big battle scene, which it's not. It ain't Helm's. No, it's not Helm's Deep.
No, at all.
But it's you know, you're there, man. It is an epic. You know, it's a good 10-15 minutes of just battles. You know, hundreds of bloody soldiers just going at each other. The music's firing on all cylinders. You're hyped. His Paul sort of rallying the troops bit when he's on the cliff face was awesome.
Visually looks amazing.
Like Cheney's little taking down all the Harkonnens and the other ones. This
Sardaukar.
I love that bit, how the camera's following her through the whole, right through it, and she's just doing all these proper The Raid style takedowns and stuff. Like you said, it sort of harkens back to that vision that Paul has in part one, and and I've seen someone actually put it like sort of side to side on Twitter, and it does look like pretty much, you know, beat for beat. So that was done purposefully and awesome how they did it. I love this final battle. I wish it was longer. I really do, but you know, it is what it is. That's not a negative. I could have watched them scrapping for another 40 minutes. So I mean,
yeah, absolutely. Like I almost think it's not fair comparing anything to Helm's Deep. I think that was just like a masterwork of how you do that battle. Because like I was sort of explaining to Georgia, that battle is like stories within that battle that you know, your ground level, you follow Legolas and Gimli for a little bit, then you follow Aragorn for a little bit. It's not really the same as that in this.
I will say as well, in the book, this film has a lot of cool action scenes. In the book, they're sort of described that it's happened to you. You don't really follow them in the book. It's sort of like you know, Paul's going to do this after, you know, and then it'll go on saying like we've just had a big fight, and you don't really get anything. So it's adding more that, you know, Denis Villeneuve added these scenes in to make it a bit more grand of a moment in the story.
100%. I think, you know, the real conflict third act where you should be like focusing on is the third act conflict with Fade and Paul. That's the main crux of the ending in it, and it is in the book as well. Like that whole knife fight at the end for the power of the throne is the most important bit. So we do get to this scene, and yet again, you know what this reminded me of? You know, the Tyrell scene in Blade Runner where he meets Tyrell. And it's like, it's the owls there, and it's got the sun in the background, and it's like, it just looks phenomenal. It reminded me of this, of that.
That scene of them squaring off with the sun in the background, you could print that off and put it on the wall, man. That was beautiful.
So good, man. So good. That whole ending is just really phenomenal. And I like the change. I like the change with Zendaya's character, Chani. Like that, the whole, like, you could really see it in her face that, like, oh shit, like, and especially when he decides to take Princess Ulan's hand in marriage as well. You know, in the book, she's totally fine with that. She sees why it has to happen. It's a political move. You know, it was the same in the first one as, like, my partner was asking, oh, how come Lady Jessica isn't Leto's wife? And he needs to reserve that hand for maybe a political reason down the line. Like, this is Game of Thrones, guys. It's Game of Thrones.
I will say with that change from the book. So yeah, in the book, Paul says to Irulan, "I will take you as my wife, but you are not my lover." I think he calls Cheney a concubine in it. I think that's like sort of the terminology, where he's still in love with her and he will spend his life with her, but he will have Florence Pugh, Irulan, as sort of the figure of his wife for political reasons. I think this was done deliberately in the movie to because the book is quite final how it finishes. Because I don't think at the time maybe Frank Herbert, I don't think at the time knew he was going to do another one. But I feel like Denis Villeneuve's got enough confidence in this movie where he knows he will do Messiah down the line. So he's leaving things for audiences to be like, oh, I wonder what happens with that. Bring them back for the next one.
I think, 100%. Like, I don't really want to spoil past Messiah. I don't want to get into children or doing anything like that. But this, there's people that you might not expect to see that definitely do return. Like, do you know what I mean? So, like if you ever feel like you haven't spent enough time with certain characters, you'll probably get a chance down the line, definitely. But yeah, man. Little changes that I'm not like 100% on. We didn't get any mentats here.
No.
We get them in the first films, and I wouldn't have a problem with it, but so Hoofer, who is the mentat for the Atreides family in the first movie, like, by all accounts, I'm aware. I feel like I'm aware that Denis actually did shoot scenes with Hoofer for part 2. In the book, the Harkonnens actually take on Hoofer as their mentat after Paiter dies after getting poisoned. But like, they're just a cool, weird part of this universe that I love, that I would just like to see in there. But I think what it'd have been is that if Hoofer was alive, at the end, I think Paul would have like shown mercy maybe on Hoofer, because at the end of the day, like, he's been helping the Harkonnens, and Paul's like on his like evil turn ish at the end there. I think it was save all that for him just killing the Baron. Do you know what I mean? And that's his mercy gone out the window. He doesn't have mercy anymore. Like, I think it was better off Paul killing the Baron than it would have Elia, if I'm being honest. But the fact she isn't born does confuse me. It does confuse me. Like, does she age up in the book pretty quick? Because she's born totally coherent with the Force, isn't she? She's like literally talking as an adult when she's born.
So, so I believe she is, she's 2 in the book when she kills the Baron. But in Lynch's movie, she seems a bit older, because on page, on page, you could be like, she's 2, she does this, because she's got the how a adult works, so she knows how to be an adult. So on page it reads okay, but to see that visually of a 2-year-old running around with a fully conscious adult mind I think that would have been a little bit weird. to see in this movie?
Yeah, I suppose so, definitely. And it would just, I think, gain more questions than it would be worth, sort of thing.
Well, and the Mentat thing, it was a weird omission. Admittedly, I was waiting for him to pop back up again.
Yeah.
It was a weird omission. Again, just because I have it the book fresh in my head, and he plays, quite a large part in part 2 when it comes to the Harkonnen side of the story. But again, like I said at the start, though, man, Denis gone in and he's looked off what can I shave off that won't really affect the story. And that, as much as I really like that character in the book and in the first film, and I would like to have seen more, you take him out of the film, you still get to the end destination. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't sort of hinder the story where you need him in it to get past something.
Yeah, I suppose. I think you've lost nothing by not adding him in, basically.
I'm waiting for these extended cuts, though.
Mate, I'm right there with you. But like one thing, Denis being pretty vocal about, he's like he's not a director.
This is the final cut.
Yeah. So it's a bit annoying that like we know for a fact that he shot scenes, because originally the actor who plays Hoofer was on the credits of the trailer. The first trailer, he was like in the little credits at the end of it. So, yeah. So they have literally took him out.
Hope we get deleted scenes, maybe.
Hopefully. One of the other sort of characters that are missing from both parts of this film, but are definitely a big part of the Dune universe, are the space navigators.
Yeah.
So if you remember in the Lynch version, right at the beginning of the film, they roll in the big like squid space navigator, but these aren't aliens. They look like aliens, but these are just people that took all the spice in the world, man. They're just like take that
mutated them, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, that is just a real big visual element of Dune that separates this from other franchises, and having something weird like that involved, I think, just visually would have been right up my street. That's selfishly up my street. But they're definitely going to have to get into this in Messiah, because in Messiah there's a space navigator who's an integral part of that story, who's a main character for the most part. So they are going to have to, he's going to have to decide, are you going CGI or you going just, how they did the Baron? Maybe it's like a mixture of CGI and practical effects. But it's something I really want to see, because the way they travel about, like there's no hyperspeed in Dune. It's the space navigators have like morphed into like a lot like Mentats, where they can do these calculations for space travel. It's just an aspect of Dune that I would love to see, and I hope that we get that in Messiah.
That they are missing. They are in the book, as well as the Chome, which is the big government business. Behind, playing, pulling the strings behind the scenes that they just omit completely from the movie. But again, I understand why. Would I have liked to have heard the name said? And but again, doesn't distract from the story whatsoever. But like you said, if we're going to get a Messiah, if they do greenlight a number 3, we're going to see them in that. So hopefully down the line you'll get your
space navigator,
your navigator, your guild.
Yeah, they're weird fish lookalikes sort of type people. But yeah, man, Dune Part 2 just absolutely blew me away. Can't wait to watch it again. I will definitely be going to the cinema to watch it again. How about you, Paul? Are you going to go for a second time?
I'm going to go for a second time, yeah. I'm going to wait for the crowds to die off, maybe catch it on one of my days off early morning, so it's a bit quieter. But I need to watch this again because on the big screen, because these sort of movies don't come around too often, and they are made. The director says it, and he's not saying it to get you in the cinema seat. These are made for the big screen. These movies do not hit the same as watching them at home. I don't care how big your telly is, how big your sound system is. Not the same.
No.
I will watch it at home a lot, but I will not get that same experience from watching it on the big screen at the cinema.
Absolutely, man. It's definitely a cinema experience sort of movie. And yeah, man. What? So just look into the future a little bit here, Messiah. Like, when do you think we'll get this film? Like, I think it's all. I've got two trains of thought here, right? I'm really anticipating seeing how much this movie is going to make, because you can't judge it from the first movie. We were in a pandemic. It got released same day on HBO Max. Fucking bizarre idea. But Messiah, to me, like, I feel like we are going to have to. What's that? 178 mil.
That's how much it's made opening weekend.
Has it?
Worldwide, yeah. I looked it up just before we came on.
Oh, no way.
It's balling. It's balling. It's doubled what they thought. It was doubled Dune Part 1. It's doubled what they thought it was going to make so far in the opening weekend.
Oh, do you know what
it's
it made?
It's flying.
Do you know what it made domestic?
It's 38 million, I think.
Right. Well, it's making money. It's making money, man. Like the way my cinema was there. It wasn't like Oppenheimer Barbie situation, but it was absolutely packed. But yeah, just quickly on Messiah, like, I feel like they are going to have to take a jump forward narratively. Yeah. But I think Denis taking a bit of a break. I think he's come out and said, like, by the looks of it, he's got a few films in line already before he even goes on to make this. But I think that'll only do this justice. Get people's anticipation up for a little bit. Maybe he's have a time jump at the start of it, because Paul's like in his 30s in Messiah. He's not like, he's 15 at the start.
I think it's like 12 years later, I think.
Yeah, right. Interesting. But yeah, man, Messiah, like, I can just see it being a total. I can see him changing it quite a bit, if I'm being honest.
He's going to have to keep in to tone. With Dune, Messiah reads completely different from Dune. Yeah. Dune is a science fiction epic novel, whereas Dune, Messiah is sort of like an epilogue to Dune, to show, sort of catch up with what these characters are doing 10, 12 years later. But it reads a lot more like an episode of Game of Thrones. There's hardly any action in it. It's all political. It's all narratively driven. He will, if he wants to keep it feeling in the same vein as these two movies, I would be surprised if they don't make him call it Dune Part 3 rather than Dune Messiah. And I don't know. He will have to add things in to make it feel more.
He's going to have to beef it up.
Yeah.
He's going to have to beef it up. It's simple.
But I hope he doesn't Peter Jackson Hobbit it, where it's like a bit too much.
Nah, I don't think. I just don't think that's in Denis' wheelhouse at all. Do you know what I mean? I think this was the perfect example of Denis' pacing and action skills and sensibilities, and not overdoing it. Like, it was just the right amount in a film like this. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I think that conflict is going to come with Zendaya. Like, I think that is, she's going to lead some sort of rebellion against Paul now. Try and stop him. Do you know what I mean? So that's what my
do you think they're really going to like change it up that much?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd be interested to see that, because that's that's how they've set us up at the end there.
I think they'll even give her a bigger lead. I think it's going to be really tragic by the end of Messiah, because they're going to build Zendaya up. And if you're aware of what happens to her character going down the line, it is quite tragic. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
I could see them giving her a bigger part, and not once throughout this film was she in, belief that what he was doing was a good thing. She was on the polar opposite side of it. She loved him for who he was as a person, not his sort of beliefs and where that was going. So, but yeah, I honestly do think they'll change it up that bit. I think that'll be your conflict. That'll be your war.
Listen, man, I hope this carries on. I want to see more from this director, these characters, this world. I don't want it to become Star Wars. I don't want somebody to start TV series and spin-offs or nothing like that. But I want to see more. If we just get This Is Dune, the novel, the first novel, there's the adaptation, this is what we get, I'll be happy with that. Like I said, I'm going to be watching these films from now until the day I die. I love them that much. But I do want more. I hope we get more.
I want Children of Dune.
Children of Dune, yeah. I'm really enjoying that novel at the moment. It hasn't gone it's got a little bit weird, but not too weird yet. I know it gets weird really down the line, but I'm not quite there yet. But I'm I'm just loving spending time with it. I'm like I said, I'm so into this world and this lore at the moment that I'm just loving spending time with these characters, and to see it, if Denis can get there with this story, I'd love to see it adapted by him, man.
Yeah, 100%. I think he'll do Messiah, and I think that'll be it for Denis. I think that man needs to go. He's made for bigger and better things, you know. Like I wouldn't have wanted Nolan just to carry on doing the Batman films forever.
Yeah.
Like, so I think get these 3 films in the bag, Denis. Show us what you've got as far as big blockbuster action films. Because what's really like impressed me about this film, it showed that he can do an impressive blockbuster. Whereas Blade Runner 2049, Arrival, they can be pretty tough on audiences, on sort of layman, like I'm just going to cinema on a Saturday, like sort of thing. Like, what we're going to watch, Arrival. Like, my girlfriend fell asleep through that film. Like, Denis can be a bit hardcore, man. Like, he's a cinephile sort of director, in my opinion. But this has shown that he's a big audience director. Like, I think this is like not a family film, because this has got R-rated written all over it, by the way. Like, as well, with the swords and stuff like that. It was a bit
he still brings that element to this film, though. It's a blockbuster, don't get me wrong, but there's still sophistication there for it. It's do you know what I mean? It's not like it's not like a dumbed down Hollywood blockbuster movie. It's a sophisticated movie, and we're missing this, man. We're not getting these films. As not, I don't want to go on Marvel, but I enjoy Marvel and I enjoy my comic book movies, but I love these movies as well. I love, I like to be challenged when I'm watching movies. I don't want to be just force fed, be chomping popcorn start to finish. I want to be immersed and listening to the story and, getting challenged sort of narratively.
The reason I went and listened to the first book when the first movie was coming out in 2021 is because I'm absolutely starved for science fiction. It's science fiction. It's like for adults. Like, like I'm not getting that from Star Wars and stuff like that. So this was just like, I just attached to it, and I was like, just praying for it to be good. And part 1 was really good, really good. Didn't end amazing, but it's part 1. That's, of course, it's going to be like that. But this has just blown the doors off, and it was better than I could ever imagine.
What's crazy as well is it does have that part 1 syndrome where it sort of just like teeters off at the end.
Yeah.
If you used to watch these back to back when it comes on 4K, so you're going in from one to the other, like it's still streamlined like that. So that part 1 syndrome that people have been throwing at it for years, including myself, that goes instantly with part 2. Now part 2's out, that part 1 syndrome's gone.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch these back to back at home.
Yeah,
I can't wait to watch them as a movie. I hope there's even like a collector's edition that comes out down the line that splices them both together. But I'd love that. Look, we got a 5-hour Justice League film. Why can't we get like a 5-hour Dune film, man? But yeah, guys, I think that'll do us for this review. Please come and join us fortnightly on a Thursday night. We won't be here next week, but we will be here the week after. But yeah, man, Dune Part 2, go and see this immediately, then book a ticket to go and see it the next day as well, because it's that bloody good. But yeah, I've been Ellis. This is the Total Movie Recall channel. Paul, thanks for coming on, mate, and reviewing this one with us. I'm trying to get my name changed to Paul Muad'Dib Tams in by the courts. I'm going to try and get that done. Please do it. I'm going to go for Raban the Beast Ellis Total Movie Recall. That'll be terrible. Right, guys, we're going. Bye-bye.